day, learners. From the stable of Lagos State's Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, Education Resource Center, we have come forward to give you some tips about certain topics that are of importance in biology practicals. As you all know, if you can do well in your biology practicals, you are good to go in the entire requirement to pass biology. Now, what are the areas that we are talking about today? Number one, we would like to give you tips about how to draw. In your biology practical exam, you are drawing nothing less than 2 diagrams. And that is why you need to know the nitty-gritty about drawing in biology. You'll be taught about the details, about how to find the size, about the title, magnification, and so on. Then the second area is that we'll also be giving you tips on classification. How do you classify every living organism in biology? What are the hierarchy that you need to know for you to be able to classify living organisms successfully? And the third aspect, we'll also be giving you tips on adaptive features of organisms. What are the features that every organism possesses for them to be able to live successfully in their environment? These are some of the things that you need to know before you go out to go and write that biology practical exam. And lastly, we'll also be talking to you about tips on fruit. We are going to talk to you about classes of fruit. How do you classify fruit? If you see a mango fruit, if you see an apple fruit, if you see a pawpaw fruit, what are the classes that they belong to? And I hope as you are joining us, you are going to learn a lot. Happy viewing. Come along with us.
E-Science Practicals, achieving success in science subjects.
Good day, students. Our topic for today is the classification of living things. My name is Mrs. Shobanke, and I'll be your biology teacher for today. Let us look at the learning outcomes, our learning objectives. At the end of this lesson, the learners will be able to, number one, identify specimen A to K. Identify specimens A to K. Secondly, learners will be able to classify, organize, or arrange, or sort the specimens that are provided. Let's start with the definition of classification. What is classification? Classification is the science of arranging or sorting or organizing living organisms into groups based on the structural, genetic, or cellular organization. You can say classification is the process of sorting living organisms into the right groups that they are supposed to belong into. How do I mean? When we buy things at home, we try to place beans. You buy beans, you buy rice. Are you going to mix them together in the same container? Of course not. Our beans will be in a container, the rice will be in another container. So in biology, when we arrange organisms, living organisms, into groups which they can be easily identified, we say this is classification. Another name for classification is taxonomy. So when you hear taxonomy, it means the same thing. It means classification. When we classify, we have 7 major groups whereby organisms are arranged into so that they can be easily identified. And these groups have hierarchy. What do I mean by hierarchy? From the simplest to the most complex, or from the most complex to the simplest. Example, when we classify organisms, we start with kingdom. Can you pronounce it? Kingdom, yes. The next one is phylum for animals. But if we are classifying plants, we don't use phylum. We use division. Division. The third hierarchy is Class. Class. The next one is order. Order. Followed by family. Family. Then genus. Genus. And lastly, species. I hope we can pronounce these words as I have called them. And we must get the spellings correctly. All technical terms must be well spelled. Now, when an organism is classified, that organism is given two major names. These two names was coined by a botanist, a biologist that is called Carolus Linnaeus. Carolus Linnaeus is said to be the father of taxonomy. He brought about the system of binomial nomenclature. What is binomial nomenclature? Binomial nomenclature is the system whereby organisms are given two names. The first name is the generic name, while the last name is the specific name. Linnaeus actually classified living organisms into two major groups. That is, the animals and the plants. Animalia and Plantae. But scientists later found out that there are organisms that could not fit in perfectly into either Animalia or Plantae. And this brought about additional kingdoms. So we now have 5 kingdoms instead of 2 kingdoms. Instead of plants and animals, we have 5 major kingdoms. What are these 5 major kingdoms? The first one, Kingdom Monera. The second one, Kingdom Protista. The third one, Kingdom Fungi. Number 4, Kingdom Plantae. And number 5, Kingdom Animalia. Scientifically, every organism is said to have 2 names according to the binomial nomenclature. How do I mean? This generic name and the specific name. For example, we have Homo sapien. That is for man. If you look at the spelling of Homo, Homo starts with capital letter H. And sapiens starts with small letter S. Homo is the generic name, while sapiens is the specific name. Another organism we can look at is the housefly. Musca domestica. Musca domestica. Musca is the generic name, while domestica is the specific name. Pay attention to the way the names are written. Generic name starts with capital letter, while the specific name starts with small letters. Please, students, during your practical exams, this is very, very important. When you are writing the scientific name of any living organism, you are expected to write them correctly. You start your generic name with capital letter, and you write the specific name beside it, starting with small letters, as the example that has been shown to you. And in a situation whereby you are not sure of the specific name of an organism, you write SP dot. Example, I am not sure of the specific name of the Musca genus that I want to showcase. How do I write it? I will say Musca underlined SP dot. Musca species. Musca species. So for any organism that we are not sure of the specific name, it is important that when we write the generic name, we put SP dot beside it. This already shows that you know what you're doing. Now let us look at the kingdoms one by one. Like I said earlier, we have 5 major kingdoms recognized in the classification of living things. Okay, so you there, let us now call the 5 kingdoms together. Number 1, Kingdom Monera. Yes. Number 2, Protista. Right. Number 3, Fungi. Good. Number 4, Plantae. And the last one, Animalia. God bless you. I love my students. You're really moving along with me. Now let us look at these kingdoms one by one. We start with the first kingdom, which is Kingdom Monera. These are majorly microscopic organisms. And the viruses and bacteria are the organisms that are found under this kingdom. The second kingdom is Protista. The major group under Kingdom Protista are the protozoans or the protozoa. Number 3, we have fungi, Kingdom Fungi. Under fungi, we have 5 major groups, and we are going to call them together. The first one is Zygomycota. Second one, Ascomycota. Third one, Basidiomycota. Fourth one, Cridiomycota. And the last one, Glomeromycota. These are the 5 phylums under the Kingdom Fungi. Amongst all the array of specimens that are shown here, we are going to classify one member of that kingdom. The next kingdom is Kingdom Plantae. Under Plantae, we have Thallophyta. Thallophyta are the red, the brown, and the green algae. And I'm sure you know the example of a common green algae. Yes, thank you. Yes, Spirogyra. Yes, Spirogyra is a green algae. The next group is Bryophyta. For Bryophyta, these are the liverworts and the mosses. The third one is the Tracheophyta. These are vascular plants. Vascular plants, that is plants that have vessels that carry food and water within them. The last group, which you and I belong to, Kingdom Animalia. Kingdom Animalia. Now, Kingdom Animalia can be divided into 2. We have the invertebrates and we have the vertebrates. What do we mean by invertebrates and vertebrates? The invertebrates are organisms that do not have the spinal cord, they do not have any backbone, they don't have any bone running from the skull down to the tail, while the vertebrates are those with backbones. So let's look at them. Animalia, we look at vertebrata. Another name you can call vertebrata is chordata, which is signifying the spinal cord that runs within the vertebral column. The groups under Animalia vertebrates, we have Pisces, our fish, amphibia, reptilia, the aves, or the birds, and the mammalia. For invertebrates, we have a wide group of organisms. We have the porifera, that are the sponges. We have the coelenterata, example is the hydra species. We have the platyhelminths, the flatworms. We have the nematoda, the parasitic worms. We have the mollusca, which are the snails. We have annelida, the roundworms. We have the echinodermata, and lastly, the arthropoda. Now, we want to look at the array of organisms that we have here. And we will look at the objectives of this lesson. The first objective, that the learners will be able to identify specimen A to K. And here we are. Our first question says that identify specimens A to K without reasons. This is a question that is very, very common during practical exams. After the array of specimens, you are asked to identify without reasons. Sometimes you may be asked to identify with reasons. Today, we want to identify without reasons. How do you do that? You answer the question by giving the English names of the specimens. You give the English names of the specimens. And that is what we want to do now. Specimen A. cockroach. B, prawn. C, snail. D, spider. E, tilapia. F, toad. G, lizard. H, rat. J, bird. K, mucor species. And L, hibiscus species. Now we look at the second question. We have just identified our specimens without reasons. The second question that is common during practical exam is classify each of the specimen A to K. Now we go together to classify them. Specimen A we have identified as cockroach. Now we want to classify specimen A, cockroach. Now we can see that on the screen I have not given you the full hierarchy of classification, because sometimes during the exam they will specify the particular hierarchy that you are to mention. Today, the 5 most important that are usually asked during exam is what we are focused on. So we are looking at kingdom, phylum, class, genus, and species. So we classify specimen A, cockroach, kingdom Animalia, phylum Arthropoda, class Insecta, genus Periplanata, species Periplaneta species. Remember, I have told us that when we are faced with living organisms that we are not sure of the particular species, we only put SP as the specific name. We only put SP as the specific name. And I want us to pay attention to the way the names are being written. Pay attention to the spellings and pay attention to the way it is written. On the board, you will see that Periplanata is underlined. Periplanata is underlined. So during your practical exams, make sure you underline your generic name and your specific name if you are sure of it. If you are not sure of it, just put specific name as SP. Periplanata, spelled correctly and underlined. Let's look at specimen B. Specimen B we have identified as prawn. Let's classify it together. Kingdom, Animalia. Phylum, Arthropoda. Class, Crustacea. Genus, Macrobrachium. Species, Macrobrachium species. And I think one of you can help me by calling out the next species identified. Specimen C. Okay? So let's go together. Kingdom, Animalia. Correct. Phylum, Mollusca. Correct. Class, Gastropoda. Correct. Genus, Achatina. Correct. And species, Achatina species. Please clap for him. That is a wonderful try. And I hope that all of you will be able to classify correctly and write correctly the names of all the specimens when you see them in your examination. Let's move on to the next specimen, D. Spider. Spider, kingdom Animalia. Phylum Arthropoda. Class Arachnida. Genus Ctenidae. Ctenidae. I specifically mentioned Dei so that when you are writing, you will not put D-E-A. It is not D-E-A. It is D-A-E. Ctenidae. Ctenidae. But if you are writing it, it is like you are writing Ctenidae. Da-E. Yes. And the species, Ctenidae species. We move on to the next specimen. Identified specimen E as Tilapia species. Kingdom Animalia. Phylum Chordata. Class Actinopterygium. Genus Tilapia. And species Tilapia species. I'm sure you all find this so easy now. Before, classifying organisms, living organisms, may be a difficult thing for you. But now, with this lesson, I believe that we all can see that it's a very simple and interesting method that we have taken. So I hope in the next class, you will be able to identify correctly the specimen that you are given, and you will be able to classify them correctly as well. We move on. Specimen F, toad. Kingdom Animalia. Phylum Chordata. Class Amphibia. Genus Buffo. And species Buffo. You know, we all play with it in the biology lab. Buffo, Buffo. You know the specific name of Buffo is also Buffo. So we say Buffo, Buffo. Yes, you are getting it. Let's move on to the next one. Specimen G, lizard. Kingdom Animalia. Phylum Chordata. Class Reptilia. Genus Agama. And species Agama species. Yes, you remember it. Yes, Agama, Agama. You are getting it. Let's move on to the next one. Specimen H, which is the rat. We have identified as rats. Kingdom Animalia. Phylum Chordata. Class Mammalia. Genus Rattus. Please take note. Rattus, double T for Rattus. Yes. And the species is Rattus. Yes. My students are very smart. I can hear somebody saying Rattus, Rattus. Yes. You're getting it. Specimen J, the bird. Kingdom Animalia. Phylum Chordata. Class Aves. Please don't go and write bird. Class is Aves. Genus Columba. Species, the Columba species. And our next specimen is the mucus species. You can see it. Kingdom Plantae. Division. Yes, thank you. I have a very active class. I can see the students. Yes, division. We no longer use phylum because we are talking about plants here. You know, fungi was formerly under the kingdom Plantae. So division is Zygomycota. Kingdom Plantae, division Zygomycota. Class Zygomycetes. Genus Muco. Species Mucus species. And last but not the least is our flowering plants. Kingdom Plantae, division Tracheophyta. Class Magnoliopsida. Genus Hibiscus. Species Hibiscus. I am sure you have enjoyed this class. And I know that anytime you see any of these in any practical exam, you're going to trash it. Thank you for listening.